So the biggest mistake first-time visitors make in Paris isn't booking the wrong hotel or skipping the Louvre. It's arriving with a budget that sounds reasonable and then quietly spending 200 or 300 euros more than they actually planned in ways they never even saw coming.
So today we're going to walk you through what a trip to Paris actually costs, and more importantly, where your money actually disappears.
We're going to cover accommodation, getting around, food, the major attractions, and the question almost everyone asks before they go. Is the Paris Pass actually worth the money? We're using a 4-night, 5-day trip as our example. Enough time to see the classic first-time sites without racing through the city like you actually missed a connection.
And we're keeping everything in euros because exchange rates, they move. The euro amount is what matters on the ground.
So let's start with the biggest cost, accommodation.
This is where Paris can either feel manageable or completely out of control. And the mistake a lot of first-time visitors make is looking only at the nightly rate without looking at the location.
Yeah, that cheap hotel outside the center might look great when you're booking. But if you spend an extra 45 minutes getting in and out of the city every single day, and you start adding transport, taxis, and lost time, it may not be the bargain that you actually think it is.
So for a first trip to Paris, we would rather stay in a smaller room in a better location than a bigger room far outside the areas we actually want to explore.
Yeah, Paris hotel rooms are often smaller than people expect anyways. This is not usually the place where you get a massive room unless you're paying massive luxury prices.
So when you're comparing hotels, look at the neighborhood, look at the metro access and whether breakfast is included and how close you are to the things that you actually want to see and do.
For first-time visitors, we would look at areas like the Latin Quarter, Saint-Germain, Le Marais, the area around the Louvre and Palais Royal.
Montmartre can also be lovely, but remember, it is more removed from some of the central sites. That doesn't make it a bad place to stay. It just means that you have to factor in the extra time getting around.
So as a rough guide, a budget hotel or simple guest house in or near the center can easily run around 120 to 180 euro per night. And in high season, it can go even higher than that.
A mid-range hotel in a good location, we would usually plan for about 200 to 350 euro per night. That sounds like a wide range, and it is, but Paris changes a lot depending on the season, the events, how far in advance you book, and whether you're traveling midweek or over a weekend.
And if you want a luxury hotel, a room with a view, or something close to the top sites, you can easily start at 400 euro per night and go way up from there.
Our biggest accommodation tip is the same one we give for all travel planning. Book early.
The good value hotels in good locations, they disappear quickly and early. And then you're left choosing between paying more or staying further out.
So for a 4-night trip, a couple should probably budget around 600 to 900 euro total for every simple stay. 900 to 1,400 euro for a comfortable mid-range stay, and 1,600 and way up if you want something more luxurious.
Now, let's talk about transportation, because this is one place where Paris actually can be pretty reasonable if you use the system properly.
The metro, buses, RER, trams, and walking will get you almost everywhere you need to go.
A single metro, train, or RER ticket is currently €2.55, and a bus or tram ticket costs €2.05. For most days in central Paris, if you're taking 2 to 4 rides, your transport costs are not the scary part of the trip.
Now, airport transfers are where people need to pay attention. The Paris region airport ticket from Charles de Gaulle or Orly is currently around 14 euro per person on the public transit system.
Now, that can be a great value compared with a taxi, especially if you're traveling light, your hotel is near a convenient metro or RER connection or anything like that.
But if you're arriving after an overnight flight with luggage, no sleep, and a hotel that involves 2 transfers and a stairs, this might be the moment where paying for a taxi or an Uber or a private transfer is worth it.
We often book private transfers through Get Your Guide so that a driver is waiting for us at terminals with our name. It costs more than public transport, but after a long international flight, sometimes comfort is a better value. So for a 5-day stay, we'd budget between 40 and 75 euro per person for local transportation if you're mostly using the metro or walking.
If you add taxis, airport transfers, and a few Ubers, that can easily go up to €100 or more per person.
So now, let's talk food, because this is where Paris can be whatever you want it to be.
Yes, you can absolutely spend a fortune eating in Paris, but you can also eat well without doing that. The trick is to not sit down at the first cafe beside a major tourist attraction and order without looking at the prices.
Yeah. Breakfast? It can be nice and simple. A coffee and a croissant at a bakery or a cafe. It might be your cheapest and most Paris-feeling meal of the day.
If your hotel includes breakfast, that can also save money.
We almost always book a hotel with breakfast included. That way we can start the day without immediately searching for food, and we can enjoy a coffee later in the morning when we actually want to stop. Now for lunch, you can keep things simple with a bakery sandwich, a crepe, a market stop, or a casual bistro. Budget travelers could probably spend 15 to 25 euros per person for a casual lunch if they're careful.
Now for dinner, this is where the range gets huge. A casual meal might be 25 to 40 euro per person, while a nicer sit-down dinner can easily be 50 to 80 euro per person before you even start talking about fine dining.
But one of the best ways to eat well in Paris without blowing the budget is to look for fixed price menus, especially in the areas like the Latin Quarter.
You will often see a starter, main course, dessert, and for adults, sometimes a glass of wine offered at one set price.
And that can be a great way to sample classic French food without feeling like every decision on the menu adds another 10 euro to the bill. Also, make sure to adjust your expectations here. You're not getting that high-end Paris meal if you're sitting down for a prefixed menu.
But you don't have to make every meal a big event. What we would do is pick 1 or 2 meals and then keep the rest simple.
Yeah, for a budget food plan, you might spend around 40 to 60 euro per person per day. That would mean simple breakfasts, casual lunches, maybe a grocery store or bakery stops, and not too many sit-down dinners.
We love just grabbing some meat and cheese and sitting in the park or sitting on the canal is fantastic.
Yeah. Now, for a comfortable mid-range food budget, I would plan around 70 to 110 euro per person a day. That gives you coffee, pastries, casual lunches, few drinks, and proper dinners without feeling like you're counting every single euro.
And of course, a more luxury food experience can start at 150 euro per person per day and go up as high as you want. Paris will happily take your money.
For our 4-night, 5-day example, we'd budget around 250 per person for careful food budget, 400 to 550 euros per person for a comfortable trip, and 750 and up if food is a major part of the experience.
Now, let's get into the attractions because this is where Paris can surprise people.
Yeah, a lot of the best Paris experiences are free. Walking along the Seine, seeing Notre Dame from the outside, exploring Montmartre, wandering through Le Marais. All of these are free and don't require a ticket.
But most first-time visitors are not going around Paris just to walk around, right, Dave? They want to go to the Eiffel Tower, see the Louvre, maybe visit Saint-Chapelle, maybe go to Musée d'Orsay, and maybe take a Seine cruise and add on a day trip to Versailles.
And this is where the costs start stacking up. For the Eiffel Tower, the official adult tickets currently range from €14.80 if you take the stairs to the second floor and €23.50 for the elevator to the second floor, and then €36.70 if you want to go all the way to the summit by elevator.
Add some champagne and it's even more. Now, this is one of those worth it decisions. If going up the Eiffel Tower is a dream for you, do it. But if your main goal is to just see the best view of Paris, remember that the Eiffel Tower is not the best view of Paris when you're standing on it.
Exactly. For some people, the Arc de Triomphe, a rooftop, or even just seeing the Eiffel Tower from the Trocadero is the better experience. For a first-time trip, we'd understand why people want to go up.
If you do not book major attractions ahead of time, you may pay with your time instead of your wallet.
Yeah, for the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and Versailles, book time tickets before you leave home, especially in peak season.
In 2026, the Louvre introduced different pricing depending on whether you're from the European Economic Area or for non-EEA visitors. For non-European Economic Area visitors, the ticket is now €32.
And that matters because a couple from Canada, the US, or the UK is now looking at €64 just for 2 Louvre tickets before you add an audio guide, a tour, or anything else.
Musée d'Orsay, Sainte-Chapelle, the Arc de Triomphe, Les Invalides, and other major monuments are usually in that mid-teen to low €20 range, depending on the attraction and the visitor category.
And Versailles is a much bigger day. You have to remember that. The passport ticket is currently €35, and that gives you access to the palace, the Estate de Trianon, temporary exhibitions, and the gardens on certain show dates.
But you also need to factor in transportation and the fact that Versailles can take most of your day. This is not something we would squeeze into the middle of a short Paris itinerary. 4 to 5 days, you can do it.
Yeah. Now, Seine Cruise, that's another common first-time expense. It's not usually the most expensive thing that you will do while you're there, but it is one of those add-ons that can sneak into the budget. For a first-time highlights trip, we'd budget about €150 to €250 per person for paid sites if you're doing the big classics independently.
If you add guided tours, skip-the-line tickets, food tours, special experiences, and a full day trip to Versailles with a guide, well, that can easily go to €350 to €500 per person or more.
Now, I think this is a good time to talk about the Paris Pass.
Yeah, Paris Pass from Go City can include different attractions, tours, cruises, and experiences depending on the pass and the duration. But that also means you need to do the math carefully before you go. If you're visiting the Louvre, Musée d'Orsay, Sainte-Chapelle, Arc de Triomphe, Versailles, well, those individual tickets, they add up quickly.
But the key here is to not buy the pass first and then force yourself to race around Paris trying to justify the cost of it.
So build your itinerary first, then compare the individual ticket prices with the pass price.
Yeah, and the pass may also help with some ticketing lines, but it does not erase security lines, timed entry rules, or the need to reserve certain attractions in advance. So don't treat it like a magic key to Paris. 2 quick things before we hit the budget totals: tipping and paying.
Tipping in Paris is very different from North America. It's built into the price, not added at the end.
So rounding up to the nearest euro or leaving a euro or two on the table is appreciated and perfectly fine. There's no expectation of 15 or 20% tips here. Now, for payment, contactless is accepted almost everywhere in Paris. Cafes, restaurants, museums, metro machines, small shops, card payments are common, and you do not need to arrive with a wallet full of euros.
One money trap, though, is to watch for the dynamic currency conversion. A hotel, restaurant, card machine, or even at the ATM will ask you if you want to be charged in your home currency instead of euros.
Now, it sounds helpful, especially when you're tired after a flight and just want to know what something costs in Canadian or US dollars. But the problem is that the machine is usually giving you its own exchange rate, and that rate is often worse.
So the rule is simple. When you are in France, choose euros. Let your own bank or credit card handle the exchange.
Now, let's put the whole thing together, because the number you actually want to know before you book is what a 4-night Paris trip realistically costs for 2 people. So for a 4-night, 5-day Paris trip before flights, a careful budget traveler sharing a room could probably spend around 700 to 1,000 euros per person. A comfortable mid-range first-time visitor should probably plan around 1,300 to 1,800 euros per person before flights. For a more comfortable, or what we call luxury trip, we would start around 2,500 euros per person before flights. And that can climb quickly depending on your hotel, restaurants, private tours, and how much comfort you actually want.
For us, the perfect first Paris trip is not the cheapest version. It's the version where you spend on the things that matter to you. A good location, the sites you truly care about, and enough time to actually enjoy the city.
So that's our view on Paris and breakdown of costs about what you can expect for your next trip to Paris.
And if this helped you plan your trip, make sure you subscribe, click on that bell, and give us a like and a hype to help boost this post and let other people plan their travels better.
And don't forget to check out all our other Paris travel tips and tourist trap videos, because we've got a whole ton on this channel.
All of that is in the links below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you in the next one.
Ciao for now.